My name is Zach Cagley, and today I'm going to talk about Flipped Classroom and give you a recorded screencast. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to present some questions through a Q&A format. And, hold on a second, please. And answer those questions in kind of a, what would you say, kind of just regular classroom format. It might be a little bit old-fashioned, but I think it'll work just fine. And I've got 8 questions today. I'm going to go through these straight through with a screencast of the text so you can read along as I'm presenting it. And I hope you enjoy. So my first question is, what is Flipped Classroom? Traditionally, teachers have taught students by giving a lecture in class and then assigning their kids homework based on what the teacher talked about in class. You know, just your normal classroom. Kids come in, they listen to the teacher for about 45 minutes to an hour, then they change classes, and at the end of the day they go home. With Flipped Classroom, this paradigm is reversed. Teachers hand out their main lesson plan by online video and or supplemental materials like written instructions or online worksheets and quizzes. And the students do this work in the time they would normally allot for homework. So the basic idea is that instead of having a regular lecture and then giving homework based on that lecture, teachers instead give students instructions in advance, like what they're going to work on the next day, and the kids work on that, usually through like a video tutorial or something like that. Like for a history lesson, the teacher would give like maybe a 10-minute video on the period in history, let's say like Roman history or something that they're studying. The kids would watch that, do some supplemental reading before the teacher even talked about it, and come into class the next day prepared to discuss everything associated with that lesson. Alternatively, instead of just doing a regular like a class session, the teacher could have what we're doing now, a Q&A format. There they could divide the students into groups. The idea of the Flipped Classroom is that during this time, the teachers will be able to use their actual class time and for more in-depth instruction, as opposed to just like letting the kids sit back in their seats and just kind of passively take in all the information. So basically, yeah, the next day the kids come to class ready to do work based on what they learned the night before. It's a pretty neat idea. Question 2: what is the rationale for using Flipped Classroom? Flipped Classroom is about making students active participants in their own learning. In a traditional lecture setting, the kids sit back in their seats and take notes on the material. When the time comes, they're expected to recite this material by memory. The obvious downside to this is that it can make them too dependent on the teacher for their instruction. So if you're just sitting in the back in your seat, listening to everything the teacher says, taking notes, that works good a lot of the time and for a lot of things, but a lot of kids don't learn well that way, for one, and two, if that's all that kids are doing, and just at the let's say test or quiz time they're simply regurgitating information, that isn't always a good indicator for the teacher as to how much information the kids are actually learning and retaining. It just, in the worst case scenario, it shows the teacher how good they are at, as some teachers call it, playing school. By flipping the classroom, teachers try to organize class time around learning activities that force students to engage the material themselves. Group activities or class projects can be ideal for this because they make students actively contribute to the group, and they can also be quite fun. So if you know that you're going to have to come to class and discuss the material with your peers and contribute to that, and you're graded or assessed based in part on your participation in that, you're going to focus on the material in a much more proactive way. At least this is the idea behind it. I think it's a good idea. behind the flipped classroom, you'll be much more active in that than you would otherwise be. By dropping a traditional lecture format, teachers are also free to devote time to the needs of each individual student. And so by not lecturing in the traditional format, by making students do all the stuff, do their work a lot of their work the night before, teachers are able to use their actual class time to answer questions from students, to help students with projects that they know that they need help on, and in general just have more time available for each student. Question 3. Is there any one correct way to teach in a flipped classroom? No. Flipped classroom is all about letting students learn at their own pace. The teacher tailors the lesson planning class content to the needs of the students. Flexibility in making lesson plans is thus a high priority for teachers using flipped classroom. For example, teachers might lead the class through a traditional lecture that uses the homework the students have already done as a kind of scaffolding for more advanced instruction. So what I mean by that is basically teachers might say, okay, here is the homework for tomorrow. Let's go back to our Roman history lesson plan again. And say, I want you to read blah 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 pages blah 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 for tomorrow. So the kids do that. They come into class, and instead of just summarizing or re-summarizing everything that the students already read, the teachers use the information or the background knowledge that the students have already taken in as kind of a preparation for what they're going to do that day. It could be group activities, it could be discussion about some aspect of the reading, some specific aspect that the background reading presupposes. For example, let's say they're going to talk about, the teacher wants to talk about Julius Caesar. Then obviously in order to have a really good discussion about that, you're going to need to know something about the time period in which Caesar was alive. And by already doing the background reading, the kids are already better prepared for a more in-depth discussion. They already have all the stuff on their belt, so to speak, that they need for that kind of talk. Alternatively, the teacher could also divide the class into groups, and that works too. Whatever, the basic idea is that teachers now have, with the students having done a lot of the preparation work, their entire class time to devote to more in-depth learning, and also more specialized and individualized learning. Whatever approach works best for that class, that's what the teacher should do. Alright, so one question that a lot of people have about the flipped classroom is, because it centers around videos, some people basically come to the conclusion that that's the only idea behind the classroom. That is basically just about the videos. Is that right? And I would say no. Videos can and ideally should play an important role in building a flipped classroom, but even more important for teaching in this format is the methods the teacher brings to the table. The video needs to be crafted in a way that fits with the discussion or the activity the teacher has planned. Often this will involve the teacher introducing a new concept or idea and explaining it to the class in an informative and concise way. A good example of this is from a 7th grade math teacher from Ladue Middle School, Andrea Smith. And this is taken from a bigger web piece about the use of videos in the flipped classroom. And the excerpt reads, crafting a great 4 to 6 minute video lesson plan poses a tremendous instructional challenge. How to explain a concept in a clear, concise, bite-sized chunk. Creating her own videos forces her to pay attention, Mrs. Smith, the details and nuances of instruction. The pace, the examples used, the visual representation, the development of aligned assessment practices. So the basic idea is, at least this is how I took it, to make a good video, you can't just start a recording and just blurb a bunch of information like I'm doing now. You have to have everything planned, put in place, how you're going to introduce the concept and explain it, and you have to do it concisely in as little time as possible, and also effectively. Make sure the students actually understand what you're saying. And so to do that effectively, it's a lot of hard work. Moreover, in order for the video to be a good one, in order to fit into the class, to what the class is doing or focusing on, it has to work with what the teacher has planned the next day. So you can't just slap down a bunch of information on a video or in a class reading and expect your flipped classroom to work. It takes a lot of work on the teacher's part as well. Question 5. Teachers need to use instructional videos in order to flip their classroom. They don't always. They can also use text and other materials. Videos, however, offer a relatively new and a pretty convenient way for teachers to use technology to keep their kids engaged. One big advantage of teaching through videos is that the students can rewind and watch them, which they can't do, for your in-class lecture. They could record them, but I don't think most teachers would like the students to have phones open in class. Also, students who miss class can easily access homework and lecture materials by watching the videos. That said, teachers can also flip their class by giving out readings before class. This is basically how most college classes work, I think. Teachers give instructions before class or readings, kids do the readings, and come to class ready to discuss them. So in short, you don't need technology to flip your classroom, but you and your students can benefit in a lot of ways through instructional videos and online quizzes and the like. And that's often one way that the teachers can assess whether their students are actually doing the work the night before or not. They can either give them quizzes in class once they get to class, or they can provide online quizzes, which, using sources like Flubaroo and other software associated with Google Drive, they can do pretty easily. Question 6. Are there flipped classroom resources that teachers can draw on in addition to their own materials? Yes. Crash Course on YouTube is one resource that features lots of videos that teachers might find helpful for the classroom. The videos seem to be specifically made for flipping and are generally high quality. Here's a brief example from a video on in world history, War and Human Nature, from Crash Course, and I'm going to